إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Today's Halaqa is an open Halaqa where we will go through a random topic, and if anyone has any questions, we will also have time for a Q&A, inshallah. Today's topic will be brief. It is a topic that we covered both in Friday, khutbah, in other classes, and so on. But since it is a part of knowledge that many people neglect or are forgetful of, it is worth repeating. So the topic is riba, backbiting, which in itself is covered extensively in the masajid, in the madaris, and so on. However, today we will look at speech that might look like it is backbiting, but in reality it is not. In other words, speech or the permissibility of backbiting or mentioning something in someone's absence. So in Islam we have rules, qawaid, and at the same time, there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. And so these are the exceptions. When does backbiting or speaking about someone else who is not present, when does that become halal? What are the circumstances? Does it ever become halal, or is it always haram? Before we go into that topic, we just have to touch on backbiting itself, riba. Many people think that backbiting is mentioning something bad about someone who is absent. But when you look at the definition of the Prophet ﷺ himself, he doesn't mention, he does not say that you mention something bad. He says, ذِكْرُكَ أَخَاكَ بِمَا يَكْرَهُ. It is mentioning something about your brother that he dislikes. So it could be true. And this takes away from the argument that people often say or use when you call them out on talking about someone who is absent. What is the number one response? The number one response is that I'm speaking the truth, I'm telling the truth, I'm not lying. And that defeats the purpose, because the backbiting in Islam is not that you have to lie. If you lie, then that is even worse. Now it is not only backbiting anymore, then now it's gone to buhtan, which is worse than riba, which is slandering. Now you've lied about someone. But something as simple as mentioning, someone as being chubby, a little bit on the heavier side, mentioning someone that has a bald spot or something that is true, but there's no reason to mention it. And on top of that, by you mentioning that truth, it hurts the feelings of that individual. So this, in Islam, it is what is considered to be backbiting, and backbiting, as we know, is haram. Not only is it haram, but many of the scholars, they say it is classified as a kabira min kaba'ir al-dhunub, meaning it is from the major sins. How do we know whether something is a major sin or a minor sin? In Islam, we look at whether there is specific mention of that sin along with a punishment. Specific mention of that sin along with a punishment. Then many of the scholars, they say this is what makes a sin be considered to be a major sin in Islam. And it does not mean that when we say major sin and minor sin, no one should ever think that, okay, so at least I'm not doing a major sin, I'm doing a minor sin. major and minor, it is only in terms of terminology, but any sin is a sin that Muslims should avoid. So, speaking about someone who is absent, it is wrong for many reasons. You do not give the person a chance to defend themselves. On top of that, by you mentioning something about this individual, even though it is true, you hurt that person's feelings. And simply put, it is haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us not to do so. And backbiting can be in many ways. It doesn't just have to be something that you mention about someone else that they dislike, but it could even be using Islamic terms, right? So sometimes if someone says, oh, do you know this sister, or do you know this brother? And they'll reply to you by saying, oh, mashallah, if only you knew about that brother, right? This mashallah is an Islamic term. It is praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the way that the person is saying it is coming across as if there's something bad, there's something hidden about that person. This scholars have said it is considered to be backbiting, even though you mentioned the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also they say, the scholars, that backbiting could also be in the form of just the look. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, so this lens of looking at someone with the wrong intention, sometimes you look at someone and the person rolls their eyes. Rolling your eyes, you did not say anything, but through that action, you indicated something. And if this person does not notice, then it becomes a form of backbiting. So there are certain exceptions to the rule, okay? And we will cover them today very briefly. The scholars in Islam have said 6 circumstances, 6 different situations that makes it permissible for a person to speak about someone else who is absent, okay? In simple terms, you do not have to say, wait, let me bring this person and have them share their story. Okay, so these are 6 special circumstances. The first one is if there is any oppression involved, any zulm. If there's oppression involved, then you can speak the truth without any sort of limitation. That you speak the truth and you speak it to someone who will be able to intervene, who is able to step up. Okay, so in Islam, we do not have to suffer in silence. If someone is being oppressed, it is not haram for the person who is being oppressed to speak out and to speak about things that other people might not know about. Okay, and the way that we speak is not that we necessarily take the megaphone and we tell the whole community, but you tell the right authorities. Okay, so whether it is within a secular system, then you get the police involved if there's oppression, and the person needs to stop that. Or if it's within the religious context, if it's advice that is needed or a reminder that is needed, then the person approaches the imam or the people who are able to help in that regard. So when we say that it is permissible for a person to speak, then it does not mean that they come and they stand necessarily on the member or in front of people mentioning everything. So the first one is oppression. The other one, it is concerning someone that you do not know. Okay, let's say there's a new brother in town. You might not remember their name. So if 2 people are talking and they say, oh, do you know Muhammad? And they say, which Muhammad? There's so many Muhammad. Then you say, oh, you know the tall brother, the black brother, and so on. This sort of description, even though it might not be pleasant description, it becomes permissible because it is highlighting, making known who it is. And even that is within limits. It does not mean that you can go on and describe someone in a very bad way. You describe a person in the way that it is needed. So if it is sufficient for you to say Muhammad, the tall brother, and people know who you're talking about, then that is what is sufficient. You do not have to go on and say the tall brother who is missing a tooth, who has a big beard, and go on in more physical description, because this will lead to ghibah, to backbiting. Another point is when it becomes permissible is when muhaddirin warning someone. Okay, let's say you've had a bad interaction. I'll give you a very specific example. You went into business with another brother, okay, or a sister went into business with another sister. Later on, you find out that this person is bringing problems. They cheat, they steal, they lie, and they act in a very harmful and un-Islamic manner. Now, you find out through trusted sources that you are not the only one, that there might be other people within the community that this person has dealt with in the same way. Now, if the problem is to such an extent, then it becomes permissible to warn against this individual, to say to people, you know what, I've dealt with them and they treated me like this. For you to tell the truth without, adding spices and flavors on top of it, then this becomes permissible. This becomes permissible. So it is not backbiting. And in order for a person to do so, they need concrete evidence. Okay, it should not turn into hearsay where it becomes qeel or qal, he said and she said and it was said and so on. But if it's done in a proper way, then warning against someone with evidence, then it becomes permissible to speak about that person. Another group of people or another situation where it becomes permissible is a person who is openly sinning. Okay, a person who is openly sinning. For people to speak about that person, it does not become backbiting anymore. Yes, sometimes if you speak in excess, then you've only wasted your own time. You could have used that time more productively. But Islamically, we're taught that this does not constitute the riba, the backbiting as we know it. Because if a person is sitting in public without any care, then it shows a bigger problem. It shows a bigger problem. Whereas in Islam, we're actually specifically told not to spy on each other. Okay, even if you have your suspicions and you think that something is happening, then there is the sense of giving a person their privacy and not taking their phone and looking through their phone. Allahumma, only exception here would be if there is something very substantial, crime that has been committed. But if it's a shortcoming, let's say you suspect your brother to be listening to music, right? Which in Islam we should not. And you happen to find something or you suspect something, then for you to delve further into that, it becomes the un-Islamic thing to do. The Islamic thing to do in that case would be to advise the person, and you keep it at that because you do not have the authority to step in to correct it in any other way. So you keep giving advice to such a person. So when a person sins in public, then it becomes permissible to speak about such a person because they are no longer hiding their shortcomings. And interestingly, there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said that all of my ummah, all of the Muslims who follow the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ, they will be forgiven their sins. This hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, every person in the Ummah will be forgiven their sins except for the ones who make public their sin. Okay? So the idea here is you hide your shortcomings, your mistakes, and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you. But if a person is making it public, the reason why it becomes permissible to speak about such a person is because it overlaps with warning, right? So if you see someone behaving in a bad way, then when you speak about them, you're speaking about them in a way so that people do not get deceived, people do not think that this is normal, because if you do not tackle the issue at that moment, the risk is that it becomes a normal thing within the community, right? The first time a person sees a Muslim drinking, it might be a big shock, right? But if it's not dealt with, if a person is not advised, and you just leave it like that, other people might be deceived and they follow in that footstep. And then the next exception is asking for a fatwa. Okay? Because when you ask for a fatwa, which is a religious verdict, you need to disclose as much information as possible. Because if you withhold information, what will happen? The sheikh, the alim, does not understand the situation fully, and they'll give you the wrong advice, right? They'll say, in the secular world, they often say, there are a few people that you should never lie to. There are a few people that you should never lie to. And from amongst those people is your doctor, right? If you go to your doctor and you start lying to your doctor, if the doctor asks you, did you take, are you on any, prescription drugs or those type of questions, and you say no, whilst you're still taking it, you're only harming yourself. So in the same way here, when it comes to asking for religious advice, then you have to disclose as much as possible, even if it means that you have to talk about someone who is absent. Right? And you have to be sincere, and you have to keep it professional. Sometimes when a person asks for a fatwa, many people, what they do is they structure their questions in a way where they kind of want a specific answer. I mean, have you ever heard of leading questions? Right? The journalists, they often do this, right? They ask in a way where they kind of lead you towards a path, an answer that they are expecting or that they want. So when it comes to asking the religious question to a qualified person, then you have to speak and tell the truth as much as possible without adding anything to it. And then finally, the last group or the last exception is asking for help. Okay? And this might sound very general because these points, they kind of overlap and they're connected. But the last group or situation that scholars mentioned is asking for help when it comes to removing evil, right? Meaning that if you have to describe that evil, then it becomes permissible, right? If something happened, let's say, Allah forbid, there's domestic violence, right? And if you have to go to someone else and say, you know what, people need to step in and help here, and you describe what is happening, and you're telling the truth, what you saw, then it becomes permissible for you to ask for that help and mention what is happening, and that is not you backbiting. Okay? So these are the 6 different exceptions, situations, if you like, where it becomes permissible for a person to speak, to say something about someone who is absent. And this, inshallah, will be covering in the coming few hadith, in our hadith class. But for now, inshallah, we will stop here. If anyone has any questions, now is the time to ask.